All right. Well, it suddenly got very quiet all on its own, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Caitlin. I'm the Executive Director of the Matheson History Museum, and we are really excited to be able to partner with the Civic Media Center for this zine making workshop using reproductions of items from both of our collections. So I will be turning you over in a moment to our expert for the day. This is Fee Stewart-Taylor, who is a zine specialist at the Civic Media Center. They study regional and local zine history and will be leading us through this workshop today. But before we get started, I just wanted to thank Visit Gainesville, Alachua County for sponsoring our works and programs here at the Matheson. And we are really looking forward to making this happen today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Caitlin, for really making all of this happen, for coming to the Civic Media Center and sort of coming up with this wonderful way to bring our collections together. So by show of hands, how many of you have heard of the Civic Media Center? Okay, hopefully it's everybody because it is on the name of the event, but no judgment if you just came in. How many of you have been to the Civic Media Center? Okay, awesome, beautiful. If you have not, we are a info shop, meaning we are a space that provides points of view not necessarily represented in the mainstream media, and we are a place dedicated to self-teaching, learning, sharing with your community, and really making your own knowledge, right? Making your knowledge in your community. So accordingly, in our collections, we have all of these wonderful booklets, all of these wonderful radical texts that have been made, dating from, some of it's the 80s, some of it's, I think that's where our collection sort of starts, all the way up through the present. And this is everything from the Gainesville Iguana, which most of you I think know and love. We have so many issues of that, and also all of these other wonderful texts that have come all up along the way. And a big part of our collection are zines. So generally short for magazine, sometimes short for fanzine. Zines have their origin in people having something to say. Really simple, right? That is all you need to make a zine, is something to say and something to say it with, right? So we are gonna start with sort of folding a simple zine, but before we do, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the history of zines and the history of zines in Gainesville. At the end of each table, there should be a couple of little booklets. They all look pretty different from each other. Most of them are about half a sheet of 8.5 by 11, and then they're little booklets. Those are zines. So if you were here and you're like, well, what is a zine? The easiest way to tell is to show. So the short version is a zine is a usually self-published booklet, a little magazine, basically. And they have their origins, and accounts differ, right? But some of them have their origins in fanzines, in science fiction and fantasy fanzines. So people who read, for example, Isaac Asimov and were like, well, I can write a better short story than that. Or, oh, this is the best short story I've ever read, I'm gonna write one. So some of them have their origins in fanzines that way, and some of them have their origins in little magazines from the sort of interwar period, right? And from art books. So work that was put together to give artists a way to get their stuff out there without needing to go through the gatekeeping of official salons, of galleries, right? So stuff that is really radical and exciting to have out there. And in the 70s, in the 80s, you start to see punk rockers really adopt the zine as a way to get out all of their ideas, right? So Riot Grrrl, like the Olympia, then nationally based movement, right, makes a ton of these zines to get out all of their awesome feminist punk rock manifestos, but you also see zines about all kinds of local scenes. Mike Taylor, a Gainesville zine artist who I interviewed, said basically a zine could be a calling card for your city. So when you went on tour with your cool punk rock band or roadieing for your friend's cool punk rock band, you could bring a zine that told people, this is what's happening in my town, and get a zine that says, this is what's happening in my town. And you could learn about how these different punk scenes were thinking, right? About everything from music to politics to women's rights to, just about anything, right? But one of the most popular things is to write about either yourself or your politics, right? So either you write about, oh, I'm really heartbroken right now, I just had the worst breakup, here's all my poetry, or you write about, I'm having the best time, this is, the best year of my life, or you write about, here's what's going on in the world, here's what I think about it, right? And you share these with your friends, with strangers, through the mail. So fundamentally, a zine is just about having something to say. In Gainesville, we had no idea, which there's some scans in if you see the stacks, some of you have scans of No Idea, some of you have scans of other local zines and periodicals. But No Idea was one of the most famous zines in the area that really focused on Gainesville local music, right? So there are all of these beautiful photos of shows and events in Gainesville that were circulating in different punk areas all over the country, and really made people think, oh, Gainesville's the coolest place in the world right now, which, as we all know, Gainesville's the coolest place in the world, right? But that's one example of a zine as a kind of calling card, right? Saying, this is what's happening in my city. Let me tell you about it. Let me tell you how cool it is. Let me tell you how cool our bands are and how important what's happening here is, right? So you can use a zine to tell people about anything that matters to you. That's the most important thing, is that you find something that matters to you and you pick a way to express it. A lot of zines use collage. They're informed by, for example, Dada art. They're informed, for example, by modernism and by détournement, so cultural movements like culture jamming that use mainstream media, and they flip it on its head and they make it say something that's a critique, right? And they supplement that with their writing, with ways of putting those collages together that makes the material say something other than what it was intended to say, right? So it's a way of speaking back sometimes to mainstream media. So what we thought we would do is bring together these very different, although you may find some unexpected collisions, right? Areas of collection between the Matheson's materials and the Civic Media Center's materials, these different ideas, these different ways of visualizing Gainesville from different historical moments, from different perspectives, made in different ways. And in just a minute, we're going to ask you to put together your thoughts. If you want to, I will have some prompt questions about Gainesville and about our community that you can sort of answer however you want: writing, drawing, collage. And we have all of these collage materials, and up at the front we have markers, tape, glue, googly eyes, like everything you could really want to make a statement. But I will show you guys two quick and easy ways to make a zine, which is, again, really just a booklet about having something to say. So I'm going to put down this mic so I can sort of demonstrate some folding, but I will continue to talk into it. Okay. What? Yes. So Jojo, who is the amazing coordinator for the Civic Media Center, is going to bring some paper around, and I'm going to demonstrate the easiest way to make an 8-page zine. So it starts by taking a sheet of paper, you fold it in half, and you can do it either hot dog or hamburger, because you're gonna eat veggie dog, veggie burger. You're gonna fold it the other way in just a second. So fold it in half once, unfold it, and I will go through all of this a little slower once I've demonstrated sort of all the moves. You fold it the other direction, unfold, and then you fold. I've yet to come up with a good food comparison, like a galette maybe, but you fold the ends into the middle on both sides. So holding the paper like so landscape format, you fold the two ends in. And I will pass around in just a second a finished example of this. So if you're like, what are you talking about? This will become clearer. And then you unfold it, and you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 little panels. So running through a little slower, because I think everybody has paper now. Fold in half, your choice of direction. I like to start sort of hot dog style. Unfold, fold in half the other direction. And then with your paper in landscape format, so if you've just folded lengthwise, that should open perfectly like that. You are going to fold one more like that and like that. So you should have that. And then when you unfold it, you should have 8 panels. So with that done, you're going to fold it back in half. And this time it does matter which direction. So you're going to want it to look like this. Then you're going to take your scissors or somebody else's scissors, or you're going to rip and tear and shred and really express all of your emotion. Anyway, you're going to make a cut like this, but only to the point where you have sort of 2 intact panels here. So you're going to cut right up to that halfway point. Okay. And once you have done that, you're going to unfold again. A lot of folding, a lot of unfolding. You're going to pull out until you get a little X. So this is the trickiest part. So let me kind of go in slow motion here. Fold, so you have a little hot dog. And then take out the middle 2 parts along the fold you just made. It should bend pretty neatly, or if you're me, less neatly. So you should have a little star or a little X, and then it'll fold with just a little bit of wiggling into an 8-page booklet. So I'm going to pass around 3 examples if you want to fold and unfold. Okay. So to walk through that with some speed, I think the part that is most tricky is the sort of final fold. So it'll take us up to that point. If you have folded everything up to that point, you're going to end up with your little panels. This is sort of a convenient option because you do not need any staples, but, and I will give you guys a tip here, if you hate doing this, you can just fold however many sheets of paper together you want, and that is just as good as Zine. But it will fall apart if you don't staple it. So this is a little bit of a sort of arts and crafts element, right? But you can do it with no staples and you get 8 beautiful little pages. So if you're at this point, you just fold it, landscape, and then you push until you have a booklet. We have someone who is looking for scissors. Can we scissors them? Perfect. Okay. If you are still stuck on folding, let me know. I will gladly come and fold with you, or maybe Jojo can fold with you as well. How is Zoom feeling? Okay. Zoom folks, if you have questions, you can Google image search 8-page folded zine, and there are a ton of excellent guides. Okay. So at this point, I am going to assume you all have a booklet of some kind, whether you've just decided the pain is not worth it and you've decided to fold 2 sheets of paper together and call it a day. If you would still like some support in your elaborate folding, flag me down after this. I'm going to give you guys, now that we have an 8-page zine, a couple of optional prompts to get you thinking about having something to say. If you came here with a vision for what zine you wanted to make, do not let this stop you, right? Whatever you want to make a zine about, whatever you have an opinion about, that's going to be the best zine ever. But if you're looking for a little bit of a prompt, I thought because we have all of these cool materials from the Matheson collection and from the CMC collection, I thought I might encourage you all to make a zine about Gainesville. And I thought we might do that based on a Renaissance fresco entitled The Allegory of Good and Bad Government. It is a little bit inspired by that, right? But the idea is just for each of your 2-fold pages, I'm going to ask you a question about Gainesville. And on one side, you're going to make a collage of all of the things that you think are wonderful. And on the other side, you can make a collage about things you're worried about or things that you think might be, a risk, or you can go totally optimistic or totally pessimistic, however you want. But that's going to be my suggestion. So for each 2-page spread, I'm going to ask you a question about Gainesville, give you a prompt. And I'm going to encourage you to go through the materials we have and collage together. You can write, you can draw. It's only a tiny little zine, so you might not have the most space, but that can be fun too. Or you can sort of supplement if you need to. And then you're going to put that together, and then at the end, you're going to give it a title, and you're going to give it a front cover, and you're going to write a conclusion on the back. So I will go through your first sort of 2-page spread question, which is, when I think of Gainesville, I think about. So on your first 2 pages, if you want to make a zine about Gainesville, to share some ideas about Gainesville, when I think about Gainesville, I think about. And you can write, you can draw, you can collage. This might be a good moment to go through the stuff you have. Please don't collage the zines though. Like there's zines on your tables, please don't collage the zines. I do need those back. Hang tight, Zoom, I'll be back. And for folks on Zoom, I think you have probably already, by our excellent Zoom specialist, been given that Dropbox link. We have the same materials here in the room. So whatever is going to be useful to y'all, or if you have your own materials on hand. Okay, take about another minute on when I think about Gainesville, I think about, and then you can come back to it, but I'm going to give you the next sort of prompt. And there's all kinds of different materials. So one thing that might be fun to think about is, as you go, what was this person who created the material that you're using to collage thinking about when they thought about Gainesville? What was their position in Gainesville? What was their position in some of these materials are from elsewhere in the North Central Florida region. But how were they thinking about the space that they lived in? How were they thinking about their community in that space, and what inspired them, or what did they think was a challenge? Okay, and on your next 2-page spread, the prompt that I'm going to give you is, I think, an apt one for being in the History Museum, which is, in 10 years, I think that Gainesville will. And then whatever that suggests to you. A lot of these materials from the Civic Media Center collection are from ecological papers. They're from different groups who are working on ecology and environmental protection. And some of them had really different ideas about what 10 years in the future would be like. And some of them are uncanny in their predictions. So I think that can be a fun thing to think about, is how did the materials that you're looking at, how did they picture 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future? And then in 10 years, I think Gainesville will. And if you want to use that spread, you can use one hand for things that you think are, one side for things you think are going to be great, and one side for things that you think might be challenges. Yep.
The rapid fire so that the
There's only one more prompt. I was gonna give it until, I was gonna give him 5 minutes, do the last prompt and be like, that's that. Okay, and last prompt, you don't have to stop working on your 10-year plan, but if you want the last prompt, so for your last set of 2 pages, I would like you to put what you think your prompt is, Gainesville should or Gainesville should be. So whatever it is that you think Gainesville, you've just made a prediction about what Gainesville will be. So for your last page, bring us your visions of utopia. If Gainesville were going to be utopia on Earth, or more realistically, if you were going to, have your way on electoral issues or whatever else you have, Gainesville should or Gainesville should be. Because a lot of the materials from the Matheson and from the Civic Media Center are about for the postcards, a sort of idealized picture perfect version of Gainesville. And for the radical materials, it's about, we're gonna make Gainesville change. We're gonna make change in whatever way we can. So for your last page, channel your inner radical, Gainesville should. And then you're gonna make a cover, and on the back, you're gonna put your name, and then you have made a zine. It is just that easy. So Gainesville should, and that'll be that. And for folks on Zoom, if you are in town, we will be having a Zine Fest at the Civic Media Center on May 27th. So if you want to come and get other people's zines, if you're in town, if you want to share your zine with other people, we would love to have you there. So thank you very much for being with us digitally and making your best, safest choice to share your ideas with us. So we really appreciate it.